In today's video, we're going to try to answer the age-old question, who invented thrash metal? And we all know that the big four were early adopters. And by the big four I mean Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax and Megadeth. But there were several other bands that played thrash during the first half of the 80s. So in today's video we're going to take a look at some of the fastest and heaviest songs from 1970 up until 1983, with the goal to find the band that invented thrash metal. And we're going to trace the development of heavy metal to see when and where it flicked over to become thrash. So make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel so you won't miss out on future uploads here on the Ruthless metal channel. And hit that like button as well so that this video can be recommended to other metalheads. So let's first establish what thrash metal is, and this is Wikipedia's definition of thrash. Thrash metal, or simply thrash, is an extreme subgenre of heavy metal music, characterized by its overall aggression and often fast tempo. The songs usually use fast percussive beats and low register guitar riffs, overlaid with shredding style lead guitar work. The lyrical subject matter often deals with criticism of the establishment and concern over the destruction of the environment, and at times shares a disdain for Christian dogma resembling that of their black metal counterparts. The language is typically direct and denunciatory, an approach borrowed from hardcore punk. And I don't know if I agree that the lyrical subject matter is about environmentalism and Christian dogmas. I think that thrash lyrics are way more diverse than that, but at least we get an idea what we're looking for here. And to explore this question, we're going to listen to a lot of fast songs from 1970 up until 1983, when the first couple of thrash metal records were released, so that we can find an answer to the question, who invented thrash metal? So let's listen to some of the fastest songs from 1970. And there we had two tracks from Black Sabbath and one from Deep Purple. And Black Sabbath released two albums this year, their self-titled album and Paranoid. And there were some fast riffs towards the end of that self-titled Black Sabbath song, but I don't think anyone would label these thrash metal songs. So let's see what was going on in 1971 instead. And there we had Black Sabbath, Children of the Grave from Master of Reality, and this song Master of the Universe by Space Rockers Hawkwind. And I think that Children of the Grave was a giant leap forward in terms of how heavy and fast this song is compared to everything else from this time period, but is it thrash? I would say no, so let's move on towards 1972. And that was Black Sabbath and Deep Purple. And Supernaut might not be as fast as Children of the Grave, but it was one of the heaviest songs from 1972. And Highway Star is definitely not a thrash metal song, but there were some nice staccato riffs in that one. And some might even claim that Highway Star was a speed metal song, but let's see what was going on in 1973 instead. And that was Nazareth, Razamanaz and Bread Fan by Budgie. And even though Metallica covered Bread Fan, I wouldn't call it a thrash metal song. So here are some of the fastest tracks from 1974. And that was Kiss with their song Deuce and Queen with Stone Cold Crazy. Another song that Metallica covered, by the way. And Queen was hardly even a hard rock band, but Stone Cold Crazy is an insanely fast song from this era. But is it a thrash metal song? No, I won't say that. So let's see what was going on in 1975 instead. And that was Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith and Symptom of the Universe by Black Sabbath. And Black Sabbath's song had some fast riffs that resembles thrash metal riffs, but I still wouldn't call this a thrash metal song, because I don't think that this song would mash in that well on Kill 'Em All or Bonded by Blood, for example. We're not quite there yet, so let's check in on 1976. And during the second half of the 70s, bands like Judas Priest, Scorpions and Rainbow reshaped hard rock. But let's see what was going on in 1977 instead. And I think that 1977 was a giant leap forward. There's just another intensity and heaviness to the songs from 1977 compared to the earlier years. And Slayer did a cover of Dissident Aggressor on South of Heaven, and it surely is a song that can melt your face straight off. But would I call it a thrash metal song? Perhaps not. And here are some of the fastest songs from 1978.
Scorching the horizon, waiting to the land. Now it's here amongst us, the age of fires at hand. Stand by for Excitor, salvation in this test.
Judas Priest Exciter was a fast song, but I still hold Dissident Aggressor as a more thrash sounding song. And here are some tracks from 1979. And that was Overkill and Bomber by Motorhead. And Motorhead brought some dirtiness to metal, and the drumming on Overkill by Phil Taylor is some next level stuff for sure, especially Phil Taylor's double time kick drum patterns. And I would say that that is some thrash metal drumming right there, but this song might not be a full on thrash metal song though. And that was some of the fastest songs of the 70s. And now it's the early 80s, and the new wave of British heavy metal started to take hold over the British Isles. And there we had a few heavy and quite intense heavy metal songs from 1980. But 1981 was even heavier.
Not too fast, not too slow. Must get up when you pull back down. If you mess around with fire, you're gonna catch yourself burned. Come here, the moon is calling, but you know it draws near. Come here, the bell is tolling, one must run it clear. Prepare the altar now and hear the virgins cry. Oh, first the sacrifice, for now it's time to die.
Holocaust had some heavy riffs, but Venom's Witching Hour from 1981 might just be the very first thrash metal song. We are at least in the speed metal territory with this track. And Jaguar, Raven and Tank released faster songs this year, but once again Venom is on another level in terms of intensity and speed. But the question is this thrash? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But let's leave the new wave of British heavy metal bands for now, because it's 1983 and that was the year when we saw the first thrash metal records. So I think we're going to explore some hardcore punk from the early 80s now, because thrash metal was the merging of heavy metal and hardcore punk. So let's listen to some of the fastest and heaviest hardcore punk songs from 1980 up until 1983. And maybe none of these songs can fall under the thrash umbrella, but I would say that they are generally more intense than the new wave of British heavy metal songs from the same era, for example. And yeah, the Suicidal Tendencies song Institutionalized was released a few weeks before Kill 'Em All, so we had to include it here as well. And I think that most people can agree that 1983 was the year zero for thrash metal, with the releases of Metallica's Kill 'Em All and Slayer's Show No Mercy. But let's explore some of the fastest and most extreme metal songs from 1982, the year before we saw the first couple of thrash metal records being released. And there is a lot of talk of the Bay Area of San Francisco as the birthplace for thrash, but maybe thrash metal was invented in Canada instead. And Exciter's Heavy Metal Maniac was released on June 14th of 1983, a few weeks before Metallica released Kill 'Em All. But these bands were labeled speed metal, so maybe we're not there yet, but let me hear your thoughts on these Canadian speed metal bands down in the comments. We are definitely on the verge of thrash metal with these two records. But if you're looking to find the band that invented thrash metal, we can't only investigate the full-length albums. Just look at Exodus, for example. They were often referred to as one of the grandfathers of thrash, but their first record, Bonded by Blood, was delayed until 1985. So let's check some of the pre-1983 demos by known thrash metal bands. And some of these demos were so badly produced, so it's kind of hard to hear what they are actually playing. And when it comes to the German thrash metal scene, I think that Holy Moses was probably the first band playing some type of thrash metal in Germany. Because Kreator and Destruction recorded their first material in 1984, but Sodom released a demo in 1983 called Witching Metal. But when listening to all these demos, I think that Metal Church was at least as heavy as the demo that Exodus put out in 1982, for example. And Exodus had some new wave of British heavy metal inspired riffs, more so than thrash riffs at this point. And Megadeth recorded their first demo in 1984, so we can cross them off the list as the inventors of thrash. And the same goes for Slayer, because they didn't record any demos before the release of Show No Mercy. And maybe it was the No Lights Till Leather demo by Metallica that featured the first couple of thrash metal songs, with tracks like Hit the Lights, Metal Militia and The Mechanics amongst others. And in 1982, Brian Slagel, the founder of Metal Blade Records, put out the first Metal Massacre compilation album. And Hit the Lights was on this record, so it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Hit the Lights was the first officially released thrash metal song. And Exciter released their World War III demo in 1982, and they had the same song released on Mike Warney's US Metal Volume 2 compilation album. And this album was released in 1982 as well. And I don't know the exact release date for these two compilations, I just know that both of them were released in 1982. And then it was 1983, and Exciter released Heavy Metal Maniac on June 14th. And then Metallica released Kill 'Em All on the 25th of July. And then Slayer released Show No Mercy on the 3rd of December the same year. And then Anthrax released Fistful of Metal in February of 1984. And I would label Heavy Metal Maniac by Exciter a speed metal record. So I would say that Kill 'Em All was the first full-on thrash metal record, especially with songs like Metal Militia and Whiplash. But I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion on this one. Do you label Exciter's Heavy Metal Maniac to be the first thrash metal record? Or do you guys think that Kill 'Em All was the first one? Or perhaps even Show No Mercy? Let me know your thoughts down below. So let's do a little summary here. I think that bands like Deep Purple, Judas Priest, Motorhead, Rainbow and Black Sabbath were highly influential, but none of them wrote a thrash metal song, at least not before 1983. And Venom was definitely a giant leap forward, but they weren't a thrash band and neither was Anvil. But some of their songs are very close to thrash metal territory, and the same goes for Exciter, I might add. And some people claim that Exodus was the first thrash metal band, but I wouldn't call their 1982 demo a thrash demo necessarily. And I mean, this is more or less impossible to judge. Maybe some bands wrote a killer thrash song but didn't include it on a demo. Or maybe they performed it live once and it was never recorded perhaps. So we have to go with the recorded evidence here. And if I was forced to name drop a song that in my opinion was the first thrash metal song, I would say March of the Crabs or 666 by Anvil, or perhaps Witching Hour by Venom. That one of those was the first thrash metal song. It's real hard to pick just one here. But if I had to pick just one band as the inventors of thrash, I'm going to have to go with the boring and expected option here and say Metallica. Because they released the first thrash metal record with Kill 'Em All, and the first thrash metal song with Hit the Lights on Metal Massacre. And maybe No Life Till Leather was the first thrash metal demo as well. It's real hard to say since the release dates for demos are impossible to track down more or less. And Metal Church, Exciter and Holy Moses were more or less as heavy as Metallica in 1982. But once again I'll stick with Metallica as the band that invented thrash metal. But I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion down in the comments below. And let me know which song that you guys would hold as the first real thrash metal song, and what band that you guys would crown as the first thrash metal band. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And hit that bell icon as well, so you won't miss out when I post new videos. And why not share this video with a friend, that really helps me out. And I've listed all my social media platforms down in the description below, if you wanna come in contact with me. So, thanks for watching, and thrash or be thrashed.